Here's a how-to video. How-to. What am I how-toing? I am putting on my new Fusick Automotive, very rubbery. Yeah. No sex, no drugs, no rock and roll, so I can't make a comment about that. Beautiful sunny day, but fall's in the air even though it is August 3rd. Patrick Glenn Nichols muscle car Barn Finds just uploaded something. This is a 66 Toronado, same as the 67, 8, 9, and 70, where GM in its infinite wisdom put the hinge pocket in the body as opposed to in the trunk. Had it been in the trunk, you wouldn't have this giant drain hole for water, and you wouldn't have this hard plastic tube. You wouldn't have this soft plastic tube, and the soft plastic tube lasts less than 50 years. Gets piled up with leaves and debris because GM did not put a screen underneath this air grill for flow-through ventilation. And the quality of the rubber is less than 50-year rubber. So check your rubbers, and if they're not rubbery, Fusick sells them. So how-to is how to put these on. I'll show you how to do it. It's not complicated, but it's not simple. First thing you need is not a pair of pliers like this. My specific spring ring clamp pliers, that's a mouthful, spring ring clamp pliers, which Buick used on the nail heads and Chrysler used. Uncle Tony's Garage could tell you about those. There's an original one. And there's the new one that came in the Fusick kit for $100 with shipping. Woohoo! So Harbor Freight and similar outlets sell a special pair of pliers that have a little notch in here to capture the end of the ring. And you can still use these, but they slip. So if you had the right pair of pliers, you'd be a little further ahead. They're cheapo $5 pliers. They're a pain if you don't have the correct pliers. But the tricky part is, after you remove the old one that's got leaves in it and is rotted and lets water get into the corner of the trunk, the drop downs rust away on the lamp. And Mr. Nice Guy that I bought the car from, I don't know what his problem was, but he told me the thing had some new parts that it didn't. But ultimately it's a good car because I've also just driven it to Chicago and back via Ypsilanti and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So it stood the test of time after I re-greased the alternator and changed the idler arm in St. Charles Pheasant Run, which is having a Pontiac meet next weekend. And I'm not going to be there because I'm heading west, young man. I wish I was a young man. So to put these on, you need some silicone spray. WD-40 will do, or any spray will do, but silicone's the best because it doesn't smell, doesn't leave residue. You spray it inside here, and when you try slide, I've already done this, when you try slide this soft rubber tube on to the hard rubbery plastic tube, it will not go on unless you have silicone spray and a pair of cheapy extra long needle nose pliers that you get at the dollar store. But these work great. They're too lame to cut the rubber, and you put this around the hard tube 3/4 of the way around it, and the last part you just snag with these cheap needle nose pliers, these long skinny ones. So the best way to do this job, in my opinion, is with these cheapy needle nose pliers, because even when you snag this and pull on it, it doesn't really have a lot of force to be able to break the rubber, tear the rubber. So this is a pretty lame how-to video, but what do you want for free? Then you slide this thing through the hole in the trunk support, and you've got to index that soft rubber tube properly, because if you don't, you're going to take it all apart, and you'll be glad you sprayed silicone spray on that tube because it rotates real easily. Stick that on there like that, and that tube's oriented the right way. And I'm going to have to wait till I get my special slip joint or my special spring clamp pliers, because to put this one on, it will go on the tube that's in the drop down of the fender relatively easily. But to get that clamp on, you can't be futzing around with these pair of pliers, because when they slip, they go it pulls off that. So this part is arguably the harder part, but they're both got their intricacies. So I'll just slip it on like I did on this side. I'll just slip it on. It's not going anywhere. It's only water pressure. I'll put the clamp on once I get my special handy dandy spring clamp pliers. Phew, it's a beautiful hot day. Look what's inside this tube. Somebody told me that the Fusic rubbers deteriorate just like the originals, but in a far shorter time. Well, I guess time will tell. So I'm going to vacuum up all this crap. Got my spare tire apparatus bolted in place. The foot goes there with a wing nut. The arm that holds onto the bumper goes there. The jack goes there. Complicated arrangements. And the spare tire, which I don't have, goes there. And what I did find in my pile of junk was the correct lug wrench. It's just minimal rust. I buffed the rust off of it. And the primer ran out just before I was finished priming it. So that's something else that I have to do. Then something else happened. The last part of my trip, my right rear shock was going boing, 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 boing. Every time I hit a bump, the suspension would jump up and down because the shock felt dead. Then the left one started rattling, and all it was the top nut was loose. And even though the top washer has built-in indentations to hold the nut from rotating, it rotated all the way to the top of the threads. There's only a couple of threads showing. So I tightened that down after I removed it, checked the bushings, they were all right, a little dry. The shock felt good and stiff and strong. And I just bolted it back real tight. And next I'm going to take off this one. I've already sprayed it with a bit of silicone. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to take off that one and see why my shock feels dead. The back end just goes boing, 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 boing all the way home, which is kind of surprising because this shock, this Delco Pleasurizer, which I think they're made by Monroe, felt good. And there's also one down here which is not available at Rock Auto. I did get one front one for $8 plus $6 shipping clearance. They only had one, so I bought one. I don't like Monroe's. I prefer Gabriel's, made in Mexico. The Monroe's are made in USA, but they don't last. So these don't seem to be available, and it looks like there's a tiny bit of oil here, but I've seen oil in shock absorbers. And the muffler. I can't show you the other side of it, which is all rusty, but you saw it when I snuck underneath. And here's what the seller described as NOS resonators. Some nice muffler shop slipped a pipe in here and just slipped the resonator over top of it. So the resonators are still in good shape, made of nice thick American steel. And I'm going to take my 1/4-inch drive and undo this tip and rotate it slightly because it's just a little off. It's not quite square with the back bumper. So that's what I'm going to do. And should I show you? Hang on a second, I'm going to pause this. I got a question to ask. We have a guest. Someone flew in like a butterfly or a moth, so I'm going to just flash the camera at him real fast and you tell me who they are. Yep. Say hi, stranger.